Great. I think we're
Great.
live. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Claude Kaplan, who's the Chief Executive Officer of KAS, who are a Hawaiian-based biotech company involved in the development of microalgae or algae. And yes, thank you so much, Claude, for joining us. Welcome to the Domus Search Leadership Podcast.
It's a delight, Matt, and thank you very much for hosting us and talking to me today.
Absolute pleasure. And as the audience will probably quickly tell, you're not in Hawaii. You're looking very fresh, and you're in the UK, in Somerset, sunny England, leading.
That's right.
Leading the Hawaiian business from the sunny shores of the UK.
It's an international business with an R&D team in Hawaii. It's a really interesting story. Perhaps just for the benefit of the listener, it would be really great to get your intro into KAS and Kuehnle AgroSystems and where you got involved and where the business. Sure, yeah. No, it's an interesting story. So Kuehnle AgroSystems KAS was started around about 15 years ago by a academic who left the University of Hawaii, Heidi Kuehnle, to set up a company to use microalgae for biofuels. There was a the use of microalgae to make low cost biofuels was seen really as a great lots of promise. Unfortunately, the promise in that sector never quite delivered, mainly just because of the cost of production. So about 7 years ago, the company pivoted and looking at their microalgae and the technology they had developed for growing them, they said, what other interesting molecules, high value molecules could they use those microalgae for? And we settled on a couple of very valuable, very useful molecules. One is astaxanthin, which I'm sure we'll discuss a bit further, and the other one is just as an alternative vegan protein source.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'd probably taken my young daughter to the zoo and seeing the flamingos and looking at the pink of salmon and krill and whatnot. It got me looking into astaxanthin as well and where it all comes from, and it's a really interesting story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. It's one of those things that we all consume. We're all sort of aware of it. We all, we know salmon's pink. We know the flamingos are pink and our lobster's pink. But of course, most of us don't really realize that actually what that is this amazing molecule called astaxanthin, which is I think it's the most highly potent antioxidant that we've ever, natural antioxidant that we've ever discovered, and lots of health benefits have been shown. I mean, it's the reason the animals have it is because of the healthy benefits that it confirms on those animals. But yes, we all consume it, but we don't really realize that actually we are having it in our normal diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd not thought of supplementing until we spoke, but I read somewhere that it's 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C in potency. Right. I mean, that's insane. I'm already heavily dosing with vitamin C anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's such a useful molecule in terms of eye health, skin health, cardiac health, anti-carcinogenic, and there's over 1,200 clinical reports about the benefits of taking astaxanthin. The problem is, and it's really come to the crux of our business, is it's currently very expensive to make. So you can buy it as a dietary supplement, but it's not as commonly known as something like vitamin C or vitamin E because it is an expensive supplement. And what we're trying to do is really reduce that price point. So not only as you can have it as a normal supplement, but that you can have it just in normal food, and that people can consume what is an amazingly healthy natural antioxidant.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was looking into the cost of development, and I guess as sort of global supply chains are affected, the cost just gets added on to the end user or the
yes. Yeah,
or the retailer,
you're right.
even.
You're right. I mean, at the moment, of course, the major input for any biotechnological product is the energy costs, whether it's the feedstock or the heating, cooling, processing, and clearly with the fuel prices going through the roof, that knocks on the effect of everybody. But if you started cheaper, then of course the end product, the effect is less. I mean, at the moment, there's very limited production of it because it takes it's produced using light, so you need very large ponds or very large what are called photobioreactors. You need a constant source of light, so it tends generally you either do it in a very hot place like Israel or China or Chile, or you grow it in a facility, but then you have to have constant light, which has a high electricity bill. So it's a great molecule. Unfortunately, the algae, which is one of the natural sources of it, just take a long time to produce it, which is where we came in. So we've found a much more cost-effective way of doing it because we don't use light. We can do it in a normal stainless steel fermenter at a fraction of the cost that it currently takes to produce it.
Fantastic. And is that dependent on the Hawaiian ecosystem or
no? I mean, and the Hawaiians historical. So Hawaii has always had a very strong reputation in this area because actually there is a lot of light, and one of the first companies to develop astaxanthin, cyanotech, is based in Hawaii, and Hawaii has a lot of investment in the sort of their natural resources, but that's where the technology was developed. For us as our company, and why I'm based here in Europe, is actually the market is global, predominantly in Europe and the US. And for us, actually, manufacture probably will be initially in Europe, and our customers will be in Europe. So Hawaii is sort of where the history of it, and where the algae which we discovered in Hawaii comes from. But in terms of as I say, the partners and the customers, that's going to be much more European focused.
So it's a really international business, and you've got involved through colleagues and peers, which is through an investment vehicle, that's right. Hatch. Is that right?
That's right. So what happened? So Hatch are a aquaculture accelerator and investor, and in 2019, KAS went on to one of the accelerator programs, and following that program, that's really where they pivoted more to both the dietary supplements, but also to the salmon market. Hatch invested in KAS. I've been doing some work with Hatch through my sort of expertise in intellectual property management. They asked me to get involved in this Hawaiian company. I said, sure, I love the idea of getting involved in a Hawaiian company.
Sounds very glamorous.
It does sound very glamorous. They said, you are staying in, it is the middle of COVID and you won't be able to go to Hawaii, but other than that. And so, I started just providing some commercial support for them. And then it grew. And then I became, at that time, KAS were fundraising. And the VCs like the business, they like the technology. They felt that the senior team didn't quite have the full skill sets that they required. And so in July last year, KAS said, would I step up to be the CEO? At that time, it was part-time because we hadn't raised the funding. We secured the VC investment at the beginning of 2022, and I became the full-time CEO from January the 1st this year.
Wonderful. It's a great story, and from what you've already said, there's so much more than being a CEO. Often people think the CEO is just kind of chewing away on the paperwork in the office, and how can we grow the business? There's so much more going on there, isn't there?
So much more. I mean, it's one of those things that, Matt, it's really interesting. I'm sure we can have a whole podcast of it. I don't think people train to be a CEO of a startup. It's not. I mean, I started my career with Unilever, a big 285,000 person company. There were career paths. People worked up. They built up their capabilities, and they got more senior levels. I think for a lot of people who become CEO, it's not exactly accidental, but it's not something you've trained to do. And one of the things about being a CEO, particularly a smaller company, is we all have a particular functional expertise, whether we're from a financial background or from a marketing background. My background is more sort of intellectual property technology. But when you become CEO, you've got to do everything. And I think there is a lot of learning on the job of being a CEO. And I think I was lucky because I've been involved in running a couple of other startups early in my career. They were very high risk. They worked to more or less a degree, but it's from that learning, from just doing the job in other CEO positions, much smaller positions. I think you sort of learn some of those skill sets. But yeah, I mean, every day is a school day. Every day I'm learning something new, because you're involved in absolutely everything. And I think it's especially also if you've taken an external investment as we have, there's a whole element of the way the VC investment world works, which you just you're not exposed to in let's say normal jobs, because it's a language, it's a set of rules of how you manage a early stage pre-revenue company, which is very different to running a normal business, which is more about profit and loss.
With the protection of the business, there to support your mistakes, but also the good stuff as well. That's really interesting, and it's a really nice message to other C-suite directors or senior executives who are aspiring to be a CEO. It's nice to hear that it's maybe not such a well-worn path that you just fall into the groove and you end up being the CEO naturally. It can come.
No, I definitely. I think it does. It comes in every time, and I imagine for a lot of people like myself, it wasn't something you particularly were looking for.
How interesting.
Because there's always a degree is that that you go there's elements of the business you just don't understand. You can't understand everything. And I think always one of the interesting challenges with these businesses is that you have to have some sectoral knowledge. You've got to understand a bit about the technology, but you can't fall in love with the technology, because at the end of the day, it's a commercial business, and what they're looking for is to step above just the technology, and you have to be excited about your product, but you also got to be realistic about where's the commercial opportunity. And for our company, we were quite lucky. So our Heidi Kuehnle, the founder, was the CEO. As the business was growing, she realized that what she needed to do, she needed to focus more on the technology and let somebody else do the more commercial business areas. And that's why she asked me to become the CEO. Having that transition from a founder company to a company where it's not the founder as the CEO is quite a difficult transition. And to Heidi and the team, they've been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the fact they asked for it rather than it was imposed on them, I think made a big difference. But that's always a tricky, because founders tend to come from a technology perspective. They love the technology, but it's not the technology that's going to make the business. It's going to be the commercial side.
I see so many founder-led organizations, even going through the Series A, Series B, don't want to let go of their baby.
Sure.
And it's very hard for them to realize when it is time to let go and let somebody else move it to the next level. So it takes a lot of self-awareness there for Heidi to say, okay, I've got it to where it needs to be.
Yes.
Now we want to take this global or new markets, and we need the right expertise. And I imagine quite difficult for a challenge, not necessarily difficult because you've done it before, but the challenge for you in managing something that has been somebody's love child.
Definitely, and and it's always that balance is that you have a path. You are there because they believe that's the right path, but you've also got to bring your own element, and it's like it's a bit like the old tanker that you don't suddenly say, actually no guys, I think we should be going totally different direction. It's like, actually let's steer it in a certain direction. But you've also got to just appreciate the amount of sort of corporate knowledge in them, in the team. I mean, they've been doing this for 15 years. They know more about these microalgae than I will ever know. And it's sort of really building on that level of expertise. And I'm lucky because I trained as a scientist 20 years ago. So at least I can speak their language. I find that's always to me a really interesting aspect, because a lot of these businesses are science technology based. You do have to have an element of the science and technology. As I said, you not get carried away and so fall in love with the technology you lose the commercial sense. But just to speak their language, to actually understand what your customers are talking about, what's happening in the market, you have to have a level of science. And I think that would be quite challenging if you didn't have at least a reasonable degree of science training.
Absolutely. I think that filter, the BS filter, to be able to call something out if it doesn't smell right.
Yes, exactly.
And move on. And maybe that leads nicely into the evolution of the organization now, and where and how you start to move things globally, geographically, but also through people as well. What's happening in that regard now?
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably one of our biggest challenges of any small company, that you literally from day one or day two you are global. I mean, okay, the technology came in Hawaii, but if we are going to if we're going to be successful, it has to be at scale, and scale means a global market. It's a product which is consumed across the globe in different maybe slightly different forms, different regulatory. So literally, from day one, we have to understand how can we meet the demands of a global consumer. So that's in terms of the manufacturing, the regulatory, having the supply chain. And for a small company, that's a lot of things to do from day one. It's not as traditionally, companies you build up in your particular country, then you go into the regional, and then you maybe go international. This is not like that. This is literally first day we're going to be international. How are we going to penetrate the market internationally? And I think the most important thing for us and for many companies our stage is about our partners. You've got to work out what do you do very well and what can you do uniquely, and what are the other areas, who can you work with, because you can't overnight create international supply chains or international brands with trust and reputation. You've got to find the right partners and work through those partners, keeping to your core strength and protecting your core strength, but having really a really good network of various partners, marketing partners, manufacturing partners, regulatory partners, to be able to actually bring it to the market.
Yeah, I guess you're in a really nice place in the UK that you're able to probably get around Europe and your main markets a little bit easier than if you're based out in Hawaii.
Yes, Hawaii's a lovely place to travel to, but it's a bit at the end of the world. Yeah, I mean, being here in the UK, we've just established a European subsidiary actually in Ireland, and that's predominantly because Ireland's in the EU and the UK isn't. But that will be another set of podcasts to talk about that. And one of our core markets is the salmon industry. And the salmon industry is predominantly in Norway, Scotland, and Chile. So being here in the UK, it's brilliant to access the salmon industry. We're building. We have this established in Hawaii. We're building our presence in Europe. We have European manufacturing partners, European marketing partners. And really, that's a springboard to globally from Hawaii and from Europe to be able to access at least the majority of the market.
Wonderful. So you're leveraging the skills of established organisations without taking the risk on of hiring a number of full-time employees to which will be a slower burner.
Yes, I mean it's a bit of both, to be honest, because we need the partners who have a big reputation, supply chains in the market, but we also need our team. A lot of our team is to actually work with those partners. That relation with the partner has to be managed. So we're looking to recruit new resource in terms of manufacturing, marketing, financial support as the company grows. Again, that's a challenge because we want to be a small company but internationally focused. So finding good people in the right location who have the right skill sets is not an easy task, and for a small company those people are absolutely core. It's not like you're 100,000 people, and if you have a few people who are quite up to what you hoped, well, it doesn't really matter, they're diluted. Everybody in the company makes a massive difference to the success of the company.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, through people? And maybe that leads us nicely into leading through people and becoming it, and maybe even the expectations of the VC and you of the business now as it grows as well. One of the questions that I thought about asking was how to become a market leader or stay a market leader through people as well. I guess given the size of the business at the minute, how you think about strategically attracting and positioning the company as it competes with larger players in the market. How do we get those great people?
It's a really good question, and it's a really tricky one. As I said, we want people who understand their markets. They've got that real sector knowledge. It's not just about having the address book, that's important, but they really understand how that business functions, so that they can talk. They can talk to our partners, they can talk to customers, and talk to the same managers. So we want that, but also we want people who are thinking about new ways of doing business in that market. So it's always that balance of they need experience, they need understanding, but also they need to be innovative, entrepreneurial, and finding that balance of people. And again, we're a small company. There's risks. Always joining a small company. There's clearly upsides as well. And for certain people, I think that attracts them. They're willing to put up with a bit more risk because there's a better upside. Where other people, they prefer the stability of a large company. And maybe that doesn't attract them. So there's all these things about their skill sets, but also their cultural fit, and they've got to believe in what we're doing. It's not a salaried normal salaried job where you come in, you do the job, you go home. You are such an important part of the business. You've really got to believe in our story and come with both your heart as well as your mind in terms of this is something I'm convicted to, and I'm really had real skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the great thing is once you find these people, the trend that I see is the Unilevers, the Mercks, the big pharma candidates are much more open and excited about a startup scale up that's going somewhere, because I think they get to a place where they recognize and have the intelligence to say, how many more years have I got in a box here? Because everything's done for you, isn't it? In so many ways, if you're in IP or you're in licensing, and licensing, just stay in your lane.
I think that's a really interesting trend. Is that people who've really been experienced in their industry, they've done many years in their industry, they've probably got to a financial stability where they're willing, to take a risk, do something because it's just exciting. Because it's not in their lane, it's something new. And I think those people who have that really deep knowledge, there's lots that they have to learn. I mean, they have to learn that you don't have this big infrastructure, this big organization supporting you. Some people I think find that extremely liberating, because there's you don't have to have a line manager to ask, can I do this or should we do this? It's the question is why not? And just nobody ever says no. Somebody just says, but if you come up with a good idea, you're probably going to have to implement it. So it's not like come up with a good idea and Joe Bloggs is going to do it. No, you're going to have to do it. So it's different. And I think for some people it is extremely liberating and free, and other people maybe the match is not so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I've noticed as well is that the people that tend to be more interested in joining the startup scale up as well are better with people. It just seems to be a trend that I find that they're more, or they have more emotional intelligence, a bit more adaptable as well. And I speak to the opposite person as well, who's very good in their own right, but just wants to check in, go hell for leather, and then check out.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point, Matt. I mean, I think any startup is a very people-focused business because you're a small business. Everybody is exposed to suppliers, customers, other people in the business. There's lots of interactions. You're not just in your function, and therefore you've got to like other people. You've got to like interacting with people. You've got to like being outside your comfort zone. But yeah, it's definitely very much you've got to have good people skills because it's again you're small teams. You're working in unusual circumstances. You've got to be it has to be a very productive working relationship.
Absolutely. So what's thinking about what's next for KAS as well, and the next 6-12 months, although there's a few issues in various airports, are you starting to travel a bit more now? I know you've got the recent patent approval for the high protein products as well, the meat-free alternative.
I mean, it's been loads of travel. I mean, I have to say, from the beginning of this year, it's been full travel as sort of pre-COVID for us. So I've got next week I'm actually going to be meeting with the VCs, have the portfolio meeting in Netherlands, then to the end of this year, Ireland, Rome, Paris, Las Vegas, and Hawaii. So yes, reasonable amount of travel between now and the end of the year.
And is that conferences or clients? A bit of both.
Exactly, yeah, a bit of both. So Las Vegas is a big food and natural products trade show. Meeting the team spending a week with the team in Hawaii. There's meeting our VCs, there's meeting customers, there's meeting research institutes. It's a mixture of everybody, meeting our manufacturing partners and potential customers. So we're at a really interesting stage, and probably the next 6 to 12 months, I'm sure all startups say this, but the next 6 to 12 months are the most critical for the business because we're just scaling up our production with our European partner. We're hoping to, by the end of the year, have it at industrial scale, which means we now have product. 2023, we can start supplying our product into the market, and that's when we start, generating revenue, and we can sail away and world domination. Scaling up is probably the highest risk for a business like ours. Yeah. So this next 6 months, finishing that scale up to industrial scale is the most critical thing for success.
That's really exciting. And and I'd like to finish off by asking Claude, just on a bit of a reflection question. If thinking about 20-year-old Claude, who'd never probably thought about being the CEO of a Hawaiian-based biotech, and maybe for the younger listeners who are coming up through their career and maybe don't know where they're going just yet, and maybe worried about where they're going in life as well, what advice would you give to your younger self that may resonate with the other aspiring leaders of the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I was lucky in that I did various different jobs. I had a good university training, then worked for large companies, worked for small companies, worked in different sectors, worked consultants, worked for the UK government for a few years. I think those different experiences allows you to understand that the world there's a lot more colours in the career world than you can ever imagine, and you have lots of experiences. And I think it's that challenge of having a sort of a sectoral expertise, but also having breadth of experience. And you can get that within a single company, or you can get there in multiple companies. And I think you probably have to, at some point in your career, decide that I'm going to be what I'm going to do. Am I going to be in the world's greatest expert in an area, or do I want some sector expertise, but also want a breadth of experience? And either path can work, and you find the path that works for you. If you're going for if you want to be a CEO, I think that breadth of experience is really essential.
Absolutely, yeah. Even in the most niche markets, I'm still surprised today when I speak to some CEOs and think, well, how did that work out? It's like, okay, you're great at raising money for businesses. That's why you're working in this radio pharmacology. It's a really kind of crazy field. But
yeah, and the last one I say is enjoy the journey. I mean, it's as I say, I don't think most people plan to be a CEO. It happens, but enjoy the journey. I mean, all the different jobs I've done, they've all been fun. They've all something I've enjoyed about them. There may be things I haven't enjoyed about them, but it's been experience. It's always been a learning experience, and just enjoy all those different things. Don't always think about, oh, I'm trying to get to, I want to be in 10 years' time X. Just be in the moment. Enjoy that particular job. Do the best you can in that job, and opportunities will always arise.
Great, yeah. The sort of wanting and the must-have and the instant economy that we're in. They click a button and it arrives before 7 p.m. So
yes, exactly.
Brilliant. And I know you've got on a commercial angle, you've got the partnership page on your website, I noticed, for any organizations that will be looking at partnering with Kuehnle AgroSystems.
Definitely. I mean, if anybody listening to this podcast is interested in natural products, functional foods, microalgae, alternative protein, please please reach out. We're, as I said, our partners are one of the critical success factors in our business. We love talking to people. We love learning about other businesses, other synergies where we can work together. So yes, please, anybody reach out, just contact us, and we'll get back in touch very quickly.
Absolutely. And I need to go to Holland and Barrett at some point to pick up some astaxanthin and see how much I can dose up on.
That's one of my favorite things is going around to supermarkets in different countries and trying to find astaxanthin, because it's one of the bad things about astaxanthin, the name. It's so most people can't pronounce it, so you have to ask a shop assistant for astaxanthin, and some people find it. I find it in the UK I find it quite difficult to find. In the US it's very easy to find, but yeah, it's an amazing molecule. All our partners, competitors, they make some amazing products out there. I don't take any dietary supplements, but astaxanthin is the one exception, because if you read just how good it is, it really is a wonderful product for human health.
That's good to know, because you can end up having a bit of a shopping list of multivitamins, as my cupboard will attest to.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's a bit like one of those things. It's a bit like shampoos or cosmetics. There's lots of pseudoscience out there. There's lots of, this is the latest product. You have to have this. It's going to make your hair. Well, I haven't got much hair, but if I had hair, makes your hair shiny or makes your skin better. Also, and you've got to look past that. There's so much marketing fluff. You've got to look at the science. And if anybody looks up the studies done with astaxanthin, there are so many studies for so many years showing just how good it is. So whatever you take, make sure it's supported by science. It isn't just marketing or branding.
That's a great way to land the ship, as Rich Roll said on his podcast the other day. And I'm looking forward to many more conversations with you, Claude. Thank you so much for your input and expertise. I've really enjoyed speaking.
It's been a pleasure, Matt. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Claude. Wonderful.
Good day.
Speak to you
Bye.
soon.